So good morning, I'm Andrea Mulrine. I'm chair of the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast Committee, and I'm also president of the board of Scranton Tomorrow. And on behalf of both Scranton Tomorrow and our Mayor's Prayer Breakfast Committee, I welcome you to the 53rd annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. I'd like to thank the board and the committee members of both Scranton Tomorrow and the Prayer Breakfast for all of their assistance, but I would particularly like to thank Deb Moran-Peterson, here next to me, and Leslie Collins, the executive director of Scranton Tomorrow, for doing all of the heavy lifting to make this event possible. Thank you. I'd also like to thank our leadership sponsors, Allied Services Integrated Health System, and the Scranton Area Community Foundation. Thank you so much for your support today. In your program, you will find a list of our program, corporate, and student sponsors, and our patrons. And I offer my sincere appreciation for your support, which allows us to invite students and seniors to join us as our guests, but truly as your guests today. So thank you for your support. The purpose of the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast is to bring together a broad cross-section of members of the community at this interfaith gathering, overcoming social, religious, and ethnic barriers within the community. I'd like to introduce the participants in today's program, starting with those at the head table to my right. We have Sharon McCrone, Executive Director of EOTC, Dr. Riaz Hussain, professor at the University of Scranton, John Cardoni from the Scranton Cultural Center, Mike Hanley, CEO of United Neighborhood Centers of Northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton Police Chief Carl Graziano, and again, Deb Moran-Peterson, extraordinary volunteer for the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast Committee. And to my left, John Cosgrove, this year's chair of National Philanthropy Day for the Association of Fundraising Professionals. Colonel Mark Volk, retired, also president of Lackawanna College. Kim Courtright, the First Lady of Scranton. Mayor of Scranton, William L. Courtright. And Pennsylvania State Senator John Blake, also a longtime supporter of and participant in the breakfast. Thank you for being here with us today. When we were doing the seating chart last night, and yes, it was last night that we did it, we were looking at the names, and one name popped up that we didn't really know who it was, and Leslie Collins, our executive director, said to me this morning, do you know who that man is? So, Mr. Carling, I don't know where you are in the room, I don't remember where we seated you, back there, but John Carling attended the first Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. Thank you for being here today for the 53rd. One of the highlights, I know it's my highlight anyway, of the prayer breakfast each year is the performance of the Scranton High School Night Rhythms under the direction of Lisa McConaughey and Rennell Barrett. Let's show them our appreciation. And they will be back today. They're not done yet. I'd like to recognize next all of the mayors and elected officials who are here with us today. So former mayors of Scranton, Eugene Peters, former Scranton Mayor Dave Wenzel, former Scranton Mayor James Connors, Mayfield Mayor Al Chillick, Music Mayor James Sigilia, and Pennsylvania State Representatives Mike Carroll and Sid Michael Kavulich. And here today representing Representative Marty Flynn is Tom Welby. Tom, thanks for being here. I'd also like to recognize our judges in the room, Judge John Catone, Judge Jim Gibbons, and Judge Margaret Bizignani Moyle. Thank you for joining us. And also here today is Lackawanna County Commissioner Patrick O'Malley. Thank you. I have a special request today. As you may know, former Scranton Mayor Jim McNulty and current Scranton City Council President and Scranton Tomorrow board member Bob McGough are both facing serious health issues. They're sorry they can't join us today, but I ask that you keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers. Government is only part of the fabric of our community, And for the past few years at the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, we have selected a theme to highlight an impactful segment of our community. We've recognized the healthcare industry and higher education, both important drivers of economic development. We are very proud today to recognize the impact of philanthropy. And in our video that we'll show a little later, you'll hear from both grant makers and recipients whose partnerships enable great initiatives to succeed. This is an exciting year for Scranton as we are celebrating the city's sesquicentennial, try to spell that, our 150th anniversary. Charter Day is April 23rd, 2016, and we have a great day of events planned for you that you'll hear more about as we get closer to that. But as I reflect on our city's 150-year history, I realize how much has been accomplished, how much has been built, and how many lives have been changed because of philanthropy. In both my professional life as a fundraiser and as a volunteer with nonprofit organizations, I see the results. From the gift of the Albright Memorial Library from John Albright in 1893, to the establishment of my own employer, the Commonwealth Medical College, in 2008, generous donors have made things happen. In addition to bricks and mortar projects, our cultural riches through the arts live and breathe because people care and support. Although our focus today is on community and family foundations, I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize the important role of corporate philanthropy. We are joined in the room by so many that I hesitate to name you all, but by representatives from many corporations who give back to their communities. And while it makes good business sense to support and improve the places where they do business, I know from personal experience that thoughtful compassion goes into their decisions. Thank you to all of the funders in the room today. Finally, and especially to our students, our high school students who are in the room, I want you to know that your personal philanthropy makes a difference. Find your passion or your passions and invest in the organizations and programs that have meaning for you. You may not think that your gift of $10 or $20 will make a difference, but it does. And when combined with gifts of $10 or $20 from many other like-minded individuals, your voice is strong and your contribution has impact. To everyone in the room, as we celebrate philanthropy today, let us remember that each of us has the power to make a difference in our communities and in the lives of others through our gifts of time, talent, and resources. We are truly blessed to be part of a caring community. And I'd like to invite Mike Hanley to give the prayer now from the Old Testament. Thank you.
A reading from the 25th Psalm. In you, Lord my God, I put my trust. I trust in you. Do not let me be put to shame, nor let my enemies triumph over me. No one who hopes in you will ever be put to shame. Show us your ways, Lord. Teach us your paths. Guide us in your truth and teach us, for you are God, my Savior, and our hope is in you all day long. Remember, Lord, your great mercy and love, for they are from of old. Good and upright is the Lord. Therefore he instructs sinners in his ways. He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. All the ways of the Lord are loving and faithful toward those who keep the demands of his covenant. For the sake of your name, Lord, forgive my iniquity, though it is great. Who then are those who fear the Lord? He will instruct them in the ways they should choose. They will spend their days in prosperity, and their descendants will inherit the land. The Lord confides in those who fear him. He makes his covenant known to them. May integrity and uprightness protect me. Because my hope, Lord, is in you. Deliver Israel, O God, from all the troubles. Amen.
What is philanthropy if not an act of love? In the New Testament, the Gospel writer John tells us in chapter 13 that Jesus the Nazarene, who he and Christians take to be the Son of God and thus spoke with the authority of God's law, proclaimed, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you. If you love me, you will keep my commandment." In that spirit, let us pray. God, our Father, grand architect of the universe and creator of us all, help us to set aside the seeds of distrust and envy that are so overshadowing our daily lives, and instead embrace the commandment that John tells us Jesus offered so long ago, to love one another as we would be loved ourselves, and to take that love out for all to see through philanthropy and our daily lives. Amen.
I would like to recognize two people. They are Colonel Mark Volk and Senator John Blake. They are at the head table. They will speak right after me. I'm proud to say they are both my former students. Quran reminds us to be charitable in many passages. Today, the reading from the Quran is from chapter 2, verses 261 through 263. These words originally, of course, are in Arabic, but I'll read their translation in English. The parable of those who spend their substance in the way of God is that of grains of corn. It grows 7 years, and each year has 100 grains. God gives manifold increase to whom he pleases, and God cares for all, and he knows all things. Those who spend their substance in the cause of God and they do not follow up their gifts with reminders of their generosity or with injury, for them their reward is with their Lord. On them all shall be no fear, nor shall they grieve. Kind words and the covering of faults are better than charity followed by injury. Allah is free of all wants, and he is most forbearing. The Quran reminds us to be charitable in these verses. It gives us the example of a grain of corn. If you sow it, it grows into a stalk of corn bearing 7 ears of corn, and each ear of corn has 100 grains. Anything spent in the way of God will come back to you in many, many times. God takes care of everyone, and he is aware of everything. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I was going to recognize Dr. Hussein as I stood up here, because certainly as a young student at the University of Scranton back in the 70s, he had a great impression on my life, and I would not be here without the work of both him and others up there. And beyond that, about 20 years later, In 1996, 97, I found myself receiving his son into my battalion while we were deployed to Germany. And just one of those chance happenings where you say, gee, I once had a professor at the University of Scranton who had the last name of Hussein. That's my father. So the world is truly small. I've been asked to recognize our veterans, and so if you'll follow along with me, please. Two of the most powerful words in any language are thank you, and no group of people more richly deserve those simple, heartfelt words of appreciation than those who have served in our armed forces and those who are still standing watch this very minute. They come from all over the country and too many times are taken for granted. They've been vigilant during times of war and peace, on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They spend countless holidays, birthdays, and special events away from their families and friends so that we could spend it with ours, without fear. Their grandparents, fathers, mothers, uncles, aunts, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, cousins, and friends. We may not always agree with the wars and battles that they fight, but this should never deter us or limit the support that we give to them. It is through the sacrifice that they and the numerous individuals who came before them have made that provides us with the freedoms we are all blessed to experience, yet so often take for granted. To the families who have lost loved ones, we offer our deepest condolences. Many of us have never endured the pain they must feel, but our hearts hurt for them nonetheless. Let us never forget the veterans who did not make it home, and remember those still serving in our prayers. Dear Lord, today we choose to honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their all when they were called upon to serve and protect our country. We ask, Father, that you will bless them for their unselfish service, for the dedication that it takes to preserve our freedoms, our safety, and our country's heritage for all of us. Please, Father, bless them abundantly for the hardships they faced, for the sacrifices they made, for their many contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, we are proud of them, and we pray that you will watch over these very special people. Please bless them with peace and happiness. Amen.
Amen.
Mayor and Mrs. Courtwright, religious leaders of our faith communities, elected officials, distinguished guests, and friends all, good morning. Let me express greetings and all best wishes from our state capitol. I would never presume to speak for Governor Wolf and indeed for all 253 members of the General Assembly, but this is a privilege and an honor in offering the prayer for the Commonwealth. Once again, a deep honor for me to join you and to mark our 53rd year of interfaith respect and community. I am blessed to participate in this annual tradition where history informs the present to inform a better future. I want to thank Andrea, Scranton Tomorrow, Leslie, the Planning Committee for their efforts to make this annual tradition so great. I also want to extend great gratitude to our former leaders of this great city, some of whom are here. Mayor Walsh, Mayor Peters, Mayor McNulty, Mayor Wenzel, Mayor Connors, Mayor Doherty, and of course, my good friend, Mayor Bill Courtwright. I also want to extend a very special thank you and welcome to 81 years young Roseanne Courtwright, the mayor's mom. How about a hand for the mayor's mom? The annual breakfast eliminates our best virtues. It announces tolerance, understanding, mutual respect as an essential element of a healthy community. We celebrate, as we have for over 50 years, a shared hope across all faiths, a hope that we will all come to a more enlightened understanding of our interdependence, and we will work together to protect and enhance the health of our community. The fact that we gather this morning in a unified call to prayer, giving example to the fine young people who you heard sing earlier, is evidence enough. And it's important to know with confidence that time, common purpose, and discipline will solve any of the fiscal woes that occupy our headlines. My prayer, a most fervent prayer, of course, is for a state budget. I noted with relief yesterday the budget agreement at the federal level, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you this. My favorite Congressman, Matt Cartwright, was driving home a few weeks ago when they had done a continuing resolution to fund the government at the federal level through December. He left a message on my voicemail. He said, "This is Congressman Matt Cartwright." He said, I funded my government. How are you doing? Thank you, Matt. Anyway, the fabric of our community is remarkably resilient. The proud ethnic, cultural, and religious traditions of our community thrive. The unselfish generosity of spirit, which is celebrated here today in honoring the philanthropic fabric of our community, is so important. We have gifted young people who are extraordinary, and we retain a strong focus on the quality of life enjoyed by all of our neighbors. There's an ever-deepening appreciation for the natural beauty and the historical character of our city, and indeed, the health of our community is strong. With this understanding and with thanks for so many blessings, I'll offer a prayer for the Commonwealth. For all the men and women of our armed forces, acknowledged by our previous speaker, Colonel Woke, serving selflessly in harm's way around the world, may they be safe at home with their families and friends. For all individuals and families who have suffered from the forces of nature or natural disaster, that they may know the touch of human kindness, compassion, charity, and support. For leaders in government at all levels, that they find the wisdom and integrity necessary for effective governance, and that they rise with an unflinching courage to meet the challenges of our time and to attain and advance the public good and the health of our communities. For faith leaders here in Scranton and throughout our Commonwealth, that they continue to find common ground and act with mutual respect to meet both the physical and spiritual needs of their communities. And for all of you gathered here, that you find peace of mind, good health, deep and abiding joy in yourselves and your families and in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll ask you to turn your attention to the big screens and to learn a little bit more about philanthropy and its impact in our community.
We in northeastern Pennsylvania are blessed to have incredibly generous citizens, businesses, and community, and private foundations who support children, men, women, and families in our community. Foundations like the Scranton Area Community Foundation, the Willery Foundation, and the Margaret Briggs Foundation pool charitable donations of many donors into coordinated investments, resulting in long-term benefits for the residents of our area.
Social service organizations in our community today are really up against it, and the foundations, both private and community foundation, attempt to fill the gaps that the reduced state and federal funding have brought about. We certainly try to reach those people in the greatest need in the community and have our funds do as much as possible to fill those gaps. Margaret herself went blind in the last few years of her life, so blind charities are high on our list of priorities whenever they have a program in need. But we also want to reach those individuals that are in great financial need. Certainly children and elderly are high on our list of organizations and people we're trying to reach with our funding dollars. There's certainly a new group of individuals in our community that come from other countries that have a lot of program needs, and we have been looking somewhat in that direction. All these organizations are extremely grateful for the funding that we give them. We don't do this because of wanting organizations to be grateful. We do it because we want to serve the people that their organizations are serving. I really enjoy working with these agencies and seeing the great work that they do in our community.
I think in increasingly economically difficult times, foundations will play and are playing an increasing role in filling those gaps with social service providers. I think we need to continue to play that role. I think the Scranton Area Foundation has always been a convener. We've always brought organizations together for the purpose of working together to solve large-scale social issues. I think we're going to continue that, but we've been increasing that role. We're looking at how can we work with other local foundations, national foundations to increase and maximize what resources are available to the community to compound that effectiveness. So I think that's how we're changing in that role. And one of the newest ways we're changing as a foundation is really in the focus of collective philanthropy. And that's doing philanthropy a little bit different. It's working with community leaders. So it's bringing people together in the community to make decisions on how funding is disseminated. An example for that is Women in Philanthropy. It's very much collective in the sense that it's focused on the end goal of empowering women and girls to lift themselves out of poverty, but it's done by working with women in the community and making those decisions. I think that the Scranton Area Foundation has long been viewed as a partner with social service agencies and nonprofits, and I know that we very much want to continue that role. So in that sense, I get to see giving, I get to see good, I get to see humanitarians every day, and that's a gift. And to be able to be a part of that and to be able to direct resources to causes and make a difference is unbelievably rewarding.
Probably almost all the programs across United Neighborhood Centers at one time or another were supported by these foundations. I think what's unique about our community foundations is they don't always wait for us to go to them looking for funding. When they see a problem, they'll come to us and say, how can we help? And I think you don't see that in other communities, and that's the value, I think, of a community foundation. They understand what's happening on the ground. They know who to approach to help to solve community problems and local problems. One of the challenges in this work is to have the resources to be able to address the emerging problems in the community. And the foundations have stepped up to the plate a number of times to try and fill those voids. In the Great Recession that started in 2008, I think every one of those foundations was on the phone to us. How can we help? What can we do? But we are the ones that actually see it on the ground, see it happening, and be able to work with these families. So it's tremendously gratifying for us to be able to do that. And hopefully we're able to translate that back to the community folks who are part of these foundations. Many of these folks are involved in other roles in the community and have a real understanding of what's happening.
For our mission of both preserving this National Historic Landmark and presenting a wide variety of
artistic and cultural endeavors that really could not take place in the community without our support and deep financial support in many cases. The philanthropic endeavors really provide the framework for that, the foundation, if you will, upon which we can build challenge grants to the community. But in some cases, it's actually out and out total support to bring in a worthwhile program that would not otherwise be possible. And when we truly reach out to help the underserved, whether it's the family-to-family program or scholarship support for children that wouldn't be able to attend programs, or just fill the empty seats programs that we've done over the years, these people would not have this opportunity without that kind of support from foundations. I'm grateful to be in the position where we can offer that on a daily and weekly basis. I think it's important that everyone realize that these foundations started with individual donors setting up a fund for the betterment of the community. And to that end, on a daily basis, they need your support as much as we need their support. Thank you seems inadequate, but it's the only words we have.
They play a critical role. I don't think these organizations could exist without private and community foundations, particularly in these times and in this state, because as everybody knows, the budgetary process in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has been pretty dysfunctional for a number of years, especially this year. So funding that would otherwise be coming to some of these social services organizations are not coming, and the need continues to grow. But beyond that, the taxpayers, I don't think alone can ever support social service needs here or any other community, and that's why these foundations are so critical. We like things that are new and different or entrepreneurial. That doesn't mean we don't like big organizations, but if they're trying something experimental or new, we want to hear about it. And we want to support it if we can. Charitable organizations have become more and more professional, better and better managed over recent decades. I think the trend in, for instance, the Scranton Area Foundation, the various private foundations in northeastern Pennsylvania to coordinate and work together on certain issues is a good trend, and it should continue. But the needs are going to be there. They always will be, and we just have to figure out the way to meet them in the most efficient way possible. But it's a very rewarding undertaking because you get to work with people who are really dedicated. One thing I would say to anybody who's interested, go to your local social service. I don't care whether it's Meals on Wheels or the EOTC or whatever it is. Go see them in action. It'll really make you feel good about humanity. Bad about the needs, but good about the people who are trying to fill those needs.
Just about every program we have at EOTC, at one time or another, along the continuum of our services, has benefited from the foundation grants. Whether it has been early on, Scranton Area Foundation came and they gave us funding that would allow us to do career transitions for women, and that was very early on. The Willery Foundation has been a strong and solid supporter with our Incredible Years program, with the various parenting programs that we have, and have actually been part of how we have crafted the program based on the interest that they had in our programs. And then Margaret Briggs Foundation has been incredibly supportive of the programs that affect families and children. So in each of their own ways, these three foundations are really, if you think of a pedestal, or you think of this stool with three legs, these foundations are that critical and that important and that supportive of the work that we do. And that is an incredible testimony and testament to the commitment of all of these foundations to our community. And again, just to thank each of you for all this incredible support and for the lives that you touch each day.
The Scranton Area Community Foundation, the Willery Foundation, and the Margaret Briggs Foundation remain trusted stewards for charitable contributions. These foundations are the instruments for an improved life for the residents of northeastern Pennsylvania.
Terrific job by Dan Simrel and Associates on the video. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is John Cosgrove, and I'm delighted to be here. I have 3 goals this morning. First and foremost is to make that connection between our community celebrating our 150th anniversary and today's theme of philanthropy. I do so fulfilling a second goal as chairman of the Northeastern Pennsylvania Association of Fundraising Professionals National Philanthropy Day. That second goal was to have the longest title on the program.
And you succeeded.
Check that off. Done. My third goal is to give the longest speech in the history of the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. Jack Carling, you start the clock. Off we go. Sit back, folks. Relax. We've got 150 years to cover. I'm actually just joking, much to your relief. I've boiled my remarks down to uncharacteristically 3 words. Those 3 words are perseverance, generosity, and hope. Perseverance, generosity, and hope. Thank you for your attention. Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. Before I begin to make the connection between the incredible philanthropic nature of our community and our anniversary as a community, I need you to join me in thanking the Scranton High School Night Rhythms for starting this day off with such an amazing experience of talent. Can you help me say hello, or thank you? The other thing I need your help with is that I have been learning American Sign Language. I need much, much more practice before doing something like this. But I would like to ask you to help me to say hello to another group of extraordinary students. Over here in the corner is a group of students from the Scranton School for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children. Will you please help me using the American Sign Language for applause and say hello to our friends? Why don't you stand up and say hello, kids? The Scranton School for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children. Very special children who are joining us here today. Thank you. Thank you very much for doing that. I wanted to start to make that connection between our incredibly generous philanthropic nature and our 150th anniversary by calling your attention to the future generation. We celebrate our anniversary in this manner today because philanthropy, generosity, charity, giving, whatever you want to call it, it is our community. It's our DNA. It's in the marrow of our bones. Because 150 years ago, those who came before us showed an extraordinary perseverance, coming from wherever it is they came from, to come here, very often to go 500 feet below the ground, in the dark, to toil and labor, to come up from those coal mines in the dark, to toil and labor. Perseverance. And they did it really for a single reason: to make life better for the next generation. Wherever they came from, they found promise. Here in northeastern Pennsylvania, they found promise here in our community, not for themselves, but to give to the next generation. So when we try to make the connection between our past and our present, We have to start there with our fathers and our mothers and our grandfathers and our grandmothers and well beyond, because it's their perseverance that has us here today. Our very good friend, Monsignor Joe Quinn, who, if you haven't heard, we're blessed to welcome back to our community after years of service at Fordham University, often tells us about what he hears other people say about us. He always says, when the end of the world comes, you want to be in Scranton, Pennsylvania, because everything happens 20 years later. We've all heard that before. Maybe some of us have heard it. I'm here today to say we need to embrace that. That's not a joke against us. We need to embrace that, because what that really means is that we adhere steadfastly to those community core values that make us unique and special: perseverance, generosity, hope. May we never, ever walk away from those core characteristics that made us special 150 years ago and makes us special today. I think about generosity, and you have to marvel at that which we just watched on the video, those community foundations that strive every single day to meet those growing needs. You have to marvel at that level of generosity. But as we turn the spotlight on philanthropy today, I'm a little bit concerned that we only think about philanthropists and philanthropy in the big and the grandiose ways. The core characteristic of our community 150 years ago today is generosity. We can't lose sight of the fact that those of us, when I was growing up in Hyde Park, if somebody passed away in our neighborhood, it became our duty to go door to door in our neighborhood and collect a little something for the bereaved family. In 1972, when Agnes flood hit, one of my earliest memories was, well, I shouldn't admit to it, but I stole a shopping cart from Brunetti's Market in Westside and went up and down the streets, even off the block where we weren't allowed to walk, and we collected canned goods and all that we could to help our neighbors. Generosity. You think in terms of our parents and our grandparents who not only instilled it in us, but insisted it upon us. You think in terms of their prayer must have been for all of us. The prayer of St. Ignatius Loyola, that prayer for generosity. Lord, teach me to be generous. Teach me to serve you as you deserve to be served, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek the rest, to labor, not to ask for reward, save that of knowing that I am doing your will. That generosity was instilled in us, insisted upon us by the previous generations. It's what makes us who we are today. And finally, hope. Everyone here today is praying for different things, because reading the newspaper or watching the television or even watching some of our neighbors suffer as they do can be very daunting. It can really be scary. It can really press us down, oppress us as a community if we allow it to happen. But just as it is a core characteristic, a core value of Scrantonians and Northeastern Pennsylvania alike, it is that hope that suppresses all of that scary, whether it be lack of a state budget or foreclosure processes that are happening more and more, or the invasive terrorism of a white blimp over Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. We have to focus on the future when we hear a beautifully sustained, perfect note out of the hearts and mouths of your children. We have to take hope out of the perseverance of a deaf child who, against all kinds of obstacles, is excelling. We have to take great hope in the perseverance and the generosity of our neighbors and of our future. It's wholly appropriate that we get together as a community and celebrate our faith traditions in this way, because that's the underlying ingredient that allows us to sustain those values and to execute those values. The strongest of them is hope. That's what our forefathers believed and lived. It's what you believe and are living now. Robert Kennedy, who, connecting to our past, gave his first public address following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy right here in Scranton, Pennsylvania, in March of 1964. At a speech in South Africa, Bobby Kennedy said this: "Each time a person stands up for an ideal or lashes out against injustice or simply acts to improve the lot of others, that person sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, they build a current so strong as to tear down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance." So as we stop from our crazy lives and we celebrate our faith traditions in this wonderful way, as we look back next year on the incredible levels of accomplishments of 150 years of being a really special place in this world, let's hold on to those core values. Let's continue to execute those core characteristics as a point of pride. Not allowing other people to define us anymore, but define ourselves in that way. We are a community of perseverance. We are a community of generosity. We are a community of hope. I thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. Jack, how did I do? A couple minutes more? Okay, thank you. Well, it all started in 1961. And thank you all very much. Mayor's prayer book.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, let me thank Andrea, Leslie Collins, and Scranton Tomorrow for all they do. I was asked to be brief because they said there's students here that are anxious to get back to class. But if I may, I'd just like to say I'm honored to have my mom and my daughter Lindsay sitting with former mayors, Mayor Jim Connors, who we credit or blame for me getting involved in politics, Mayor Wenzel, who wrote that great book on the Scranton mayors, and my fellow West Sider, Mayor Gene Peters. As I look out into the room today, I see people of different faiths. This is the type of diversity, the hallmark of the Scranton community. While there may be differences in our beliefs, today we are here to celebrate the things that bring us together and make us stronger as a community. As we partake in the celebration of faith in its many forms, we also celebrate a common principle that binds all faiths together. Scranton has a long and proud history of philanthropy. At the heart of that history is the recognition that we as a community and as a people of faith share a responsibility for the well-being of our fellow citizens. There are so many outstanding charitable organizations in Scranton that each serve the needs of our community in different but important ways. There are countless volunteers who work to better their neighborhoods and help their fellow Scrantonians, and they do it without expectation of recognition. Together, these organizations and volunteers who carry out their critical function play an important role in our city and beyond. While there are dozens, if not hundreds, of nonprofit and charitable groups doing work in Scranton, it would be impossible for me to name them all. There are a few I would like to mention by name who deserve the recognition for the work they are doing to revitalize our downtown and to invigorate our local economy. For over 60 years, the Scranton Area Foundation has been at the forefront of philanthropy in Scranton. Their efforts to organize and direct philanthropic funds where our community needs them the most have been invaluable. They are currently spearheading the Scranton Area Neighborhood Park Collaborative, and I look forward to continue working with them and their partner organizations to continue to improve our city and our economy as a whole. Along with our charities, volunteers, and nonprofits, Scranton businesses have a strong tradition of giving back as well. Through their contributions of time, talent, and treasure to Scranton, our business community has helped to make our city stronger and more vibrant. I want to make special mention of another group of organizations that have pledged their resources to help confront our most pressing issues as a community. As I have said before, we all must share in the recovery of our city. These organizations embody this. Geisinger Community Medical Center, Lackawanna College, Allied Services have stepped up and helped us confront our financial challenges. Through their support, we have been able to bring in expertise to help us continue down the road of recovery, and we all thank them for that. The Commonwealth Medical College has been a great asset to the city of Scranton and has spurred economic development into downtown and downtown living. In Scranton, philanthropy is our greatest tradition. I'm thankful we have such tremendous base of philanthropic organizations, businesses, and everyday heroes who are committed to promoting the general welfare of our city and all of our residents. I thank you for everything you've done and everything you continue to do. If I may, I would just like to acknowledge, sitting to my right, the members of my cabinet who work extremely hard each and every day to make Scranton a better place to live. It is my great pleasure to work with them, and I thank you. So God bless you, God bless the city of Scranton, and God bless the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, and I am committed to the shortest closing. We begin and we end always with thanks. Thank you for the grace to gather here, for the blessings to be here, and for the courage to leave here emboldened to be instruments of peace and channels of justice and mercy and joy. And to call upon Marion Wright Edelman, oh God, take our tiny acorns of service and turn them into towering oak trees of hope. Thank you all, and good day.